Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. It is because as I was thinking on Thursday, what am I going to talk about on Friday's episode? I didn't know what I was going to lead with. And then out of nowhere, out of the coaching carousel heavens, we get a report from John Canzano, the best, probably most plugged in person in the state of Oregon, that Oregon, the Ducks, have asked permission from UCLA to speak to Chip Kelly as their next head coach. So we got a blast from the past. Maybe the former Ducks head coach is now the future head coach. And what I would say about this is a couple things. One, first of all, we know that this vacancy is open because of Mario Cristobal. And two, what I would say is, just kind of an interesting timeline on all this. I just referenced John Canzano. I would argue probably the most plugged-in person in the state of Oregon. I actually kind of started following this process through him about a week ago. I remember when Mario Cristobal, when the rumors first started to really ramp up for Mario Cristobal going to Miami. And on Saturday night, as I'm getting ready to do my Fox Sports radio show, I see this guy, John Canzano, just tweet out something about how if Mario Cristobal were to leave Oregon for Miami, that Chip Kelly would be the overwhelming favorite to get the head coaching job. And so I bring all that up just to say, one, this guy has been on top of everything. But two, that really kind of was the first red flag of like, oh, this Mario Cristobal thing might be happening, because why else would a guy in Oregon be tweeting about who would be next if he did not believe that there was a very good chance that Mario Cristobal was going to be leaving and that Oregon was already coming up with contingency plans. And now that contingency plan is official, as Chip Kelly appears to be the favorite to be the next Oregon head coach. And so let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. Let's debate it. Because to me, I think it opens up an entirely different can of worms. Chip Kelly, of course, was at Oregon for 4 years, 4 Pac-10 and Pac-12 titles. Obviously, over the course of a 4-year stretch, went from the Pac-10 to the Pac-12, was indisputably the greatest coach in the program's history. But a lot has changed since then, and I think there are pluses and minuses to considering him as the next head coach at Oregon. I think the biggest plus is exactly what I just said. Oregon was always a very good program under Mike Bellotti, and he took them to an elite level, where, as I said, 4 times they were Pac-10, Pac-12 champions. Once they played for a national championship, and I believe in his final year, had there been a 4-team playoff, not only would Oregon have made it, but I believe they had a team that was good enough to win it. And I also think because of Chip Kelly's success, it helped lay the groundwork for everything that Mario Cristobal did over the last 3-4 years at the school. And to fully understand and to fully appreciate what Chip Kelly did, I think we have to kind of go back and think about what Oregon was before Chip Kelly. Because I'll tell you a funny story. When Mario Cristobal officially did decide to leave Miami a few days ago, I was kind of on social media, and I was texting with some buddies, and I was texting with some friends, and I had a buddy send me a kind of a video mashup of all of Mario Cristobal's biggest losses at Oregon. And this was from an Oregon fan. The loss to Utah in the Pac-12 championship, or the loss to Arizona State 2 years ago before they won the Pac-12 championship. The loss to Utah this year in the Pac-12 championship game. The loss to Stanford this year earlier in the season. And kind of the insinuation that I've seen from other Oregon fans is the idea that Oregon is going to be better without Mario Cristobal. We don't need him. Screw him. Let him go back to Miami if that's what he wants. And what I would say is, one, I don't know that I agree with that. I don't think Mario Cristobal is Vince Lombardi, but let's stop acting like Oregon is USC or Ohio State or Alabama in terms of history. And I don't know when Oregon fans believe that it is their birthright to be great at football, but I think we just got to go back to pre-Chip Kelly to realize what Chip Kelly did at that school and how incredible he was as the head coach. Because when my buddy sent me that video, I said, wait a second now. I don't feel like I'm that old, but I kind of remember a time where Oregon was sort of irrelevant on the national scene. Well, just for fun, I went ahead and looked it up, and Wikipedia basically confirms exactly what I thought, okay? So just for fun, I went ahead and looked it up. And I said, I know Chip Kelly was awesome. I know that Helfrich and Taggart and Cristobal had their ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys since he left. But how good were they pre-Chip Kelly? So I went ahead and looked it up. From 1950, how about this? From 1950 to the year that Chip Kelly took over, to the year before that Chip Kelly took over in 2009. From 1950 until 2008, Oregon had, are you ready for this? 4 conference championships. From really 1948 was the last one, so 1949 to 2009. Not great at math. That comes out to about 60 years if my math is correct, or is it 70? I don't even know. 60 years. 4 conference championships in the years of 1957. Don't know how many of you remember that one. 1994, 2000, and 2001. And so the idea that this program was absolutely incredible and an absolute juggernaut when Chip Kelly took over, it simply is not true. And so Oregon, as I just said, 4 conference championships from 1949 until 2009. Again, I think that's 60 years. I hope my math is right. Otherwise, I sound like an idiot. But the bottom line is, you know what happened after Chip Kelly came in and took over? And I will say, like, Mike Bellotti was good his final few years at Oregon, but Chip Kelly came in and took them to another level. Here was Chip Kelly's 4-year run at Oregon, and in some ways it feels like it was much longer than 4 years, and in some ways it feels like it was shorter. First year, goes 10-3, wins the Pac-10 championship, goes to the Rose Bowl. Not bad, I would say. Pretty good first year for Chip Kelly over there at Oregon. 10-3, by the way, he lost his first game. That was the game that LeGarrette Blount punched somebody. But 10-3 his first year. You go to the Rose Bowl. You lose in the Rose Bowl to Ohio State and Terrell Pryor. But 10-3, Pac-12 championship. Second year, 12-1, Pac-12 championship, national championship game against Auburn. Okay, that was the game where Oregon was, I don't know if they were in control. I don't know if that's fair or unfair. Michael Dyer, we think he's down. He's not down. He gets up. He runs. First down, field goal. Auburn wins the national championship. Year 3, 12-2, Pac-12 championship. And year 4, 12-1, Pac-12 championship. And that was a year. I remember this like it was yesterday. That was the year that Alabama beat Notre Dame in the national championship game, and they destroyed them. I remember I had a buddy who was an Alabama fan who was like really into analytics, and he was crunching the numbers. He said, this Oregon team is the second best team in the country. They scare me way more than Notre Dame does. They scare me way more than whoever. Notre Dame was the runner-up, but that was a year where Georgia was really good, where Texas A&M was really good with Johnny Manziel, and where Oregon was really good. But I bring all this up to just say, in 4 years for Chip Kelly at Oregon, his overall record was 46-7 with 4 Pac-10 or 4 Pac-12 championships. So 1949 to 2009, 4 total conference championships, 4 years under Chip Kelly, 4 conference championships. So that shows you how good he was. 46-7 overall, 33-3 in Pac-12 play. And this was a time, by the way, the Pac-12 was actually pretty good. Jim Harbaugh was at Stanford. Pete Carroll was there for a year or so at USC. The Pac-12 was pretty good at that time, especially relative to it is now. And I would also say, as I said a minute ago, since he left, that program has been on another level, and I think that is in large part thanks to Chip Kelly. So when we start to look at how good of a hire would Chip Kelly be at Oregon, we have to understand their greatest heights as a program came when Chip Kelly was there, and then immediately after Chip Kelly was there, when in 2014 they played for a national championship almost exclusively with Chip Kelly's players. It's also worth noting, I think Chip Kelly is owed a debt of gratitude from Mario Cristobal, from the current coaching staff, that allowed them, because I do think, again, the infrastructure that was put in place 10 years ago under Chip Kelly, I think that helped Mario Cristobal in 2018, 2019, 2020 when he went on the recruiting trail. Because the bottom line is, Chip Kelly kind of laid out the blueprint. Yes, you can win Pac-12 championships regularly at Oregon. Yes, you can recruit the best players in the country regularly at Oregon. Yes, you can go into Southern California and get the best players, whether USC is good or not, at Oregon. Yes, we can use the Nike money and the uniforms to become a national brand. Yes, Oregon football can become relevant. And so again, I think there are a lot of college football fans that just assume that Oregon has always been either the best or second best program in the Pac-12 since the beginning of time, the Pac-10, whatever. And that's simply not the case. That's basically about a decade and a half, and it's because, I don't want to say almost entirely because of Chip Kelly, but because in large part thanks to Chip Kelly and what he has built at Oregon. So with that said, I think it makes sense to bring him back. best success you've ever had. He knows the program. He knows the team. He knows what it takes to build a national championship caliber team at Oregon. He's obviously already in the Pac-12. He's back in college football. And let's also be honest. Everybody at UCLA isn't totally happy with him right now either. And so for him, it kind of makes sense to start looking for other options, not because he's going to be fired, but because there is talk that they want him to shake up his coaching staff. They want him to make changes, all this, all that. I do think he's the best candidate for Oregon, and I also think it'll be interesting to see if Oregon believes that he himself is the best candidate for them. I also don't think this is like a grand slam, home run, impossible to fail hire either, and I think it's kind of worth noting that, yes, Chip Kelly had this program at an insane level a decade ago, but a lot has changed in a decade. And obviously, look, the first part that has changed is that the Chip Kelly brand has gone a little bit sour. I don't think he was quite as bad in the Pac-12 as he was, or in the NFL, as I think a lot of people remember. If you go back to his 3 years in Philly, 10-6, 10-6, 6-9, had 1 year in San Francisco where he went 2-14, and that was what got him back to college football. But I mean, look, first season he makes the playoffs. Second year he wins 10 games and is good enough to make the playoffs. And in year 3 it kind of falls apart. They go in a different direction. But it's also worth noting, like, didn't really work in the NFL. And even at UCLA, yes, he went 8-4 last year. Yes, I've defended him. Yes, last season. Yes, I've defended him. Yes, I said that if in the 2020 season there had been a full schedule, UCLA was 3-4. I believe they would have gotten to 6-6 and gone to a bowl game. But let's not act like this has been a completely smooth rebuild at UCLA either. Complete disaster in year 1, 3-9. Complete disaster in year 2, 4-8. Again, finally started to turn a corner last year and then really made the jump this year. But at the same time, a lot of the things that made him successful early in his career have changed. He was the offensive guru. It was about tempo. It was about pace. It was about speed. Well, now everybody does tempo. Everybody does pace. Everybody does speed. What made him so unique 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, that's no longer unique. That's par for the course in college football. And if anything, guys like Lane Kiffin and Josh Heupel have taken it to another level in this sport since Chip Kelly left. On top of that, what I would say, I just think, again, that Chip Kelly brand has kind of soured, and part of the reason that he left Oregon the first time is that if you kind of read and you kind of remember and you kind of think, he started to butt heads with Phil Knight. He didn't really like a lot of the elements that came with coaching college football, and you're kind of starting to see the same stuff at UCLA. As I just said a minute ago, this is a guy that is a little bit under fire because he's being stubborn about changing his coaching staff. The defense in year 4 was not very good this year. And he doesn't want to change the coaching staff. And there's kind of this belief internally that he's got to make some changes. He doesn't want to. But you look at what the defense did. Gave up 44 to Utah, 34 to Oregon, 42 to Arizona State, 40 to Fresno State, 33 to USC, even in a win over UCLA or USC. And so even though the offensive talent is there and the offensive success is there, the defense has been a disaster at UCLA. He won't make changes. He's a little bit stubborn, a lot of bit stubborn. He's closer to 60 years old than 50 years old. So it's not like you get him for another 10 years. It's not like he has this great rebuild under him. On top of that, he doesn't deal with the media. And I think most importantly, he doesn't like recruiting. Like, if you want to make the argument on why Chip Kelly will be successful at Oregon if he takes this job, if they offer him this job, it's because he will inherit the most talented roster in the Pac-12 at Oregon. It's really interesting. I was reading some of Mario Cristobal's quotes after he left Oregon, and he kind of told his players in that locker room on Monday when he decided to leave, he's like, guys, I think you guys should stay because we have a national championship caliber team in this locker room. Never forget, Mario Cristobal can be criticized for a lot of things. He's a heck of a recruiter. And if you go back the last few years, number 6 recruiting class in the country nationally a season ago in 2021. They were trending towards a top 10 class this year. We'll see what happens. In 2020, had the number 12 ranked recruiting class with several 5-star and high 4-star players. And so I bring it up because Mario Cristobal said, look, the makings of a champion are in this room, and Mario Cristobal has said all along, publicly, privately, on the record, off the record, that he believed that his best teams at Oregon, it wasn't going to be in 2021 this year. It wasn't going to be in 2019 with Justin Herbert. It was going to be in 2022 and 2023 when those rosters really matured. And so if you're looking for a reason to bring in Chip Kelly, it's because next year's Oregon roster might be the most talented roster that he has ever coached, maybe dating back at the college level, at least not including the NFL, but dating back to that last Oregon team. And this one might be deeper, more athletic, better across the board than even that team. And so if you believe Chip Kelly can take a good program and make it great, elevate it to the next level, that's one thing. But on the downside of it, this is a guy that doesn't like to recruit, doesn't do the high school thing. He's increasingly relied more and more on the transfer portal at UCLA. I don't begrudge him. I don't think it's the wrong decision, but I think it's also worth noting that the next roster that Chip Kelly has, if he does in fact go to Oregon, will probably end up being his best roster at Oregon, and that will probably be his best chance to win big, because after that, I just don't think he is going to bring the same recruiting energy and effort that Mario Cristobal has over the last 3, 4, 5 years. So this is one, guys and girls, I say this all the time. I come on this show, and I love to have very strong opinions about everything I talk about. This is going to work. This is going to fail. This is good. This is bad. Lincoln Riley will do this. Brian Kelly will do that. Mike freaking Woodson, John Calipari, Kentucky, whatever it is. I like to come on this show and have strong opinions about everything I talk about. But this is one, I kind of see both sides. I do think that Chip Kelly is probably the best candidate. I do think he makes the most sense. I do know that he can win at the highest levels at Oregon. But I also know that was 2009. That was 2010, 11, 12. This is 2021, 2022, 2023. And is 58, 59, 60-year-old Chip Kelly going to do the same things that 48, 49, 50-year-old Chip Kelly did at Oregon a decade ago? I don't know. I do think it's worth following and pursuing, because I do believe this is going to be among the absolute most fascinating stories to follow in college football over the next few days.